Welcome back to our final episode of The Plastic Cup. We kind of started this series just to kind of share women's stories of women at Community Baptist Church. And I've really enjoyed it. I've learned a lot. And I know there's many ladies that I could have still asked and I had in mind. But we're kind of hopefully wrapping up this quarantine time, and hopefully we can kind of have more face-to-face contact. So I'm hoping that these conversations were just starters and that maybe we felt deeper connections with some of the women in our church that we didn't know we had. And I'm sure there's many more stories out there, so keep the conversations coming. I have a very special guest, and I thought to wrap up this series, it would be fitting to have Deena Stalnaker here with me. So she has graciously considered coming and doing this with us. I met Deena, well, I guess it would have been maybe 3 years ago or something like that. First time. And I felt immediately just her warmth and her kindness. She was very gracious as a mother to mother. Both of our husbands are in ministry and have been for some time. Yours much longer. But sometimes people can be. I feel that a level of expectation as a mother, and people are judging my children, and I'm the pastor's wife and things like that. And I never got that feeling with her. She was always very let children be children and very positive. And I feel like that can go such a long way for a struggling mom kind of raising their kids. So I appreciate that about her. Her and I both have 4 children, so that was an immediate kind of connection. She'll probably talk about this later on, but she went back to school again later on in life when I think all your kids, were they in school by that time?
Daniel was 3.
Okay, so kind of around the same time I'm doing all this. So she has kind of been a lifeline, and many times I'm like, I don't think I can do this. And she has been there to lift me up and say, it can be done, it's gonna be tough, but you can do it. So that's also been a big blessing to me. And of course, our husbands work together, and I enjoy watching our husbands interact. I especially like these Wednesday night things they've been doing. I get a kick out of it. But we're so appreciative that they wanted us to partner with them here in Middle Tennessee, and we've definitely learned a lot from them and from our time here so far. But like I said about her being a mother, her mother's heart, it was very apparent coming here. She was working with our small children, and I got to kind of work with her for a while, and I just saw her love for the kids. The kids loved her. I mean, my kids immediately. In fact, it was only a couple weeks into them being in your class, and they came home and were like, I love Miss Deena. She's so nice. She's so sweet. So they sense the same thing that I sense. Deena is a wife, a mother, a grandmother, right? Mm-hmm. And you're a nurse, and you have a farm too, so you do a lot of farming. So I'm just going to kind of hand it over to you for a minute, and you can kind of share your background. You actually grew up in Tennessee, correct?
I grew up in Memphis.
Okay.
So our family is all in Middle Tennessee, aunts, uncles, cousins. So I grew up spending summers south of here in Wayne County, but I'm from Memphis.
Okay.
So, but I'm a Tennessee girl.
Yeah, so did you ever, was it your dream to always kind of be back here, or you just, I mean, how did that look for you?
I never dared to dream because, as a minister's wife, you go where you're called. My mother, it was her dream for us to always be back here.
Okay.
But I never dreamed. And in fact, when we, heard about the church opening, I don't know if I can go ahead and share that, but when we heard about the opportunity to plant a church in Spring Hill, we had a friend that kept saying, you should plant a church in Spring Hill, and we were like, we'll only do that if the Lord closes all the other doors. Mm-hmm. Not because we didn't want to do it, but because, first of all, we didn't see ourselves as the song and dance routine type couple that can usually start a church. And then second of all, it would have been too good to be true to get to be back to Tennessee. So we were like, there's no way we'll ever get to do that, Well, the Lord took a year to remove all the other choices, just like we said, and we ended up in Spring Hill. And my husband came down here and visited it, and he called me back. He goes, this is where we're coming. So 2 weeks later, we came down here, bought a house on the weekend, and moved a month later. I mean, it was like, boom, we're done. This is where we're going. So, and that's the short story,
right?
Short version of it.
Yeah. Now, you all have lived in several different places, so you've kind of had ministry experience in different areas and different things. And so how has that, do you think, affected your experience and knowledge and implementing the ministry here?
Well, I think our first ministry in Chicago, we were just babies, you know, so we had a lot to learn. We look back and we're like, oh my word, I can't believe they put up with us. But we learned a lot and made some really good friendships there, and all our important first happened there. You know, first real jobs, first home, all our children except Daniel were born there. So, and then a lot of those relationships we still have. And then we went to New Hampshire and really grew up. Learned a lot in that church. And that's where I think my pastor's wife heart kind of grew a little more. And then also Mike's heart grew. And so, but the situation was not a good one for us. And so we left that church, left it in good hands and all that, but felt it was best for us to leave. And so we went back to our original church in Chicago, which was great to have a safe place to go back to. And my husband at the time told him, we'll give you 5 years. But after that, he really wanted to be in his own church again. Not his, you know, as owning it, but he wanted to lead a church again. And so that, at the end of that 4 years after that, is when we started looking at church opportunities and made the statement, we'll only plant a church if God removes all the other opportunities. So circling back to that, God took a year to remove all these other little opportunities. It was quite a stressful year.
Yeah, I bet so. Quite an uprooting situation.
We had no idea we were going to go.
We have kids and stuff. And
yeah, we knew we were in a parsonage at the time, and we knew that we had to be out by July 1st. And you know, May 1st, we still had no idea where we were going. So, but then Mike visited Spring Hill, and suddenly we knew where we were going. In fact, after we bought the house, we were so excited. We were going to drive from here to Memphis to go see my mom for a few days. She had kept the kids for us. And we were so excited that we missed our turn. To this day, I have no idea how we did it, but we ended up in Alabama somewhere. Like, I don't know how we did it, but we were just so excited about coming here. You know,
that's neat. That's neat. And I've heard bits and pieces, but like maybe you can share for those of us who are maybe newer to the ministry. This is the third location that the church has met.
Right.
Where were some of the first, where you guys kind of, it was exciting. I love hearing the story.
The first place was, it's by, I think it's still the Green Bank, or kind of up near Wendy's in the northern part of Spring Hill, across from, it was Dr. Malouf's cardiology office. It's that White House, kind of near where the silo was and all that stuff. So it was in the little bitty office building there. It was so tiny, it was not even funny. And then from there, we rented the next place next door to it, and then somebody let us use it on Sundays, and then a place across the way we got to use for the Wednesday. So we just kind of kept expanding. And then from there we went to, in the parking lot of Lowe's where McAllister's Deli is, but now, it's Marco's Pizza now. That was our place. It was completely not built out or anything. And so we went in there and finished it out, and that was our second place. And then from there we bought this building and finished it out.
Well, you guys, I know when we first visited, we were just amazed. It's a beautiful building. You guys did a great job, and I'm sure there's a lot of labor of love, a lot from the church family.
Some people might not know, when we did the build out of the church, I don't know if the Ruleys were part of that, if they were here or not, but before we started putting up drywall and everything, we had everybody in church come one evening, and we all went through and we wrote messages on the insides of the walls. So that's underneath the drywall, whatever we chose to write.
That's amazing.
So, and on the floors, wherever they said, write wherever you want, because it's going to be covered up, and so we all wrote
I
messages.
love, if those of you who don't know, I think it's called the office wing, right? The office wing, there's pictures of every year that you all have met together, and it's fun to see just the congregation grow and the same faces, but more children added to it. It's just very exciting. So I've enjoyed kind of learning some of those stories. Now that we know some of the people, they share some of the stories of all those different buildings, and I think that everyone says it with fond memories, and it's special.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Sometimes you never knew what was going to show up, so we'd be like, okay, you're the nursery team, but you might be the children's church team. We just never knew who was going to show up.
So question. As let's say there's a couple who's going to go church plant somewhere in the United States, what would be some advice you would give that couple?
Know that God is going to bring to you the people that you will need. I joke about Mike and I are not the song and dance team. We're just not. But God brought in song directors. He brought in people that could play the piano, lead music, and We brought in people that could keep the books for us because we strongly believed that we were not going to look at the finances. We didn't want to know what people gave, you know. He brought in the finances. I mean, he provided everybody to help out. He brought in people that were willing to, hey, I'll do the nursery this week, no big deal. You know, I'll do the children, flexible people that were just willing to jump in and help. So God will bring in those right people.
I feel like flexible is a good word. You
Yeah,
probably have
very
to
flexible.
be flexible week to week and just kind of give lots of grace and trust that God will bring those people along.
Yeah.
You know, I love being part of this ministry, and I love seeing people's talents and the gifts kind of rise to the surface. And sometimes I think they don't even realize they have it, but they're like, I mean, I'm not that great, but I'll do it. And you're like, you're totally gifted in this way. So it's neat to see God kind of create that in a church body. So this is the last episode of the Plastic Cup for this round. I actually just decided to bring back my original just to kind of wrap it up. So you all should have heard the story of that one already. But Deena, why did you bring this cup, and why is it special to you?
Why is this cup? I don't know. I mean, it doesn't have a fancy story. This is my work cup. So I have to drink 2 of these. If it's a good day, I get through 2 of these. So I'm not real thirsty and dehydrated by the end. But it's not fancy. I've had other fancy cups with the cute little straws or glitter or my monogram, and they never hold up. You can't put them in the dishwasher. You have to hand wash them, and I work in a hospital. That's just not acceptable. So this is my favorite color. But
It is.
other
If you
than
meet
that,
Deena, you will realize that red
I
is
love
her
red.
color.
But other than that, it's totally washable, and it doesn't like change its shape when you put it in the dishwasher. And so I don't know, it's sturdy. I can drop it on the floor and it doesn't break. I mean,
That's
it's
huge.
just it's great. It's sturdy
huge.
and it holds the water I need. So I
Yeah.
don't know.
And that's
Nothing fancy. It's
and
just
honestly, that's what I love about this is that's that kind of the thought process before. That's not the right word. The thought process behind the idea of the plastic cup. That sometimes it doesn't look the perfect way. It doesn't. You know, our lives don't. You know, we always think of our lives having to, you know, showcase this way and we need to be that person, and why can't I be like this person? But you know, sometimes the most useful things are the things that are durable and that are available, and that, you know, so that I think that's a perfect example of what we're doing here. So we talked a little bit about you having a farm, and I will say as an add-in, Deena and Mike both have been they're very hospitable. They have a nice piece of property, and they have quite a few animals. How many animals do you have? Do you know?
Currently, we have 120 cows. So that includes 50, we just counted them up the other day, I think around 50 calves. And we have 2 big horses and 2 ponies and 2 dogs.
Yes, so they have lots of critters, and then they have the stragglers like the turkeys and all those are the ones that kind of roam your land. But you're very sweet with animals, and you can tell that the animals respond to you. I love watching you with your horses, and she's been very good. My girls love to go to her farm and pet the horses and help take care of them. They've gotten to bottle feed little calves, which is super sweet. And actually, Ellie, she came home saying, I want to have a farm someday, Mom. I want to have a farm. So, and
That's
honestly,
sweet.
I could totally see her doing
That's
really
sweet.
well with that. So my thought was, tell us a little bit about your animals, or I know you like to ride quite a bit with your horses, and maybe some funny stories about the farm. I'm sure there's many.
Do you want to hear about animals, or do you want a funny story? What do you want? I could talk
Let's
for
do
days.
Let's do the funny story first. We'll start there.
Okay, so there's not a whole lot of funny like gut-busting stories, but there's sweet memories. I think the best one I had this winter, my son Daniel might disagree, although he does smile a little when we tell the story. So we had a rough winter with a couple of calves, and their mama's not taking them. That's a whole nother deal. But one calf in particular had a very difficult birth, couldn't, nurse from his mama for about 48 hours. So we were actually tube feeding him, and he was really weak still. So if you remember, it rained a lot this winter. Well, on a farm that equates to mud in some areas where the cows trample a lot. We had this calf and his mama in a pen in one area. But we were having to take her 3 times a day to the chute to confine her, and then we would pull the sides off the chute and help the calf to stand and nurse. And she didn't really want him because he was weak, and that's just part of animals. but we were going to make her take this baby. So it was late one night, and Daniel was coming out there to help me with this huge project. It was cold, it was dark, and it was muddy. So I got the cow, walked through the mud from the pen to the chute, and got her in the chute, and I'd asked Daniel, can you carry the calf? He's too weak to make it through this mud. Well, the calf weighs 60, 70 pounds, and is long-legged and struggling a little bit. So he's carrying this calf through the mud, and it's dark, so he's got his flashlight in his teeth, and he's carrying the calf so he can see. And he steps in a particular place in the mud and starts to walk forward, and his boot sucks off. And so he's, Mom, you know, and so I come over there, and I'm like boot sucking in the mud, come over there, and I'm pulled his boot out, and he's got his foot up, trying to hold the calf, foot up so it doesn't go in the mud, and I'm trying to get his boot on, and it's dark, remember? Once again, we got our flashlights in our mouth, and he lost his balance because I wasn't fast enough, and he fell down in the mud with this calf, and I fell down in the mud with him. We were covered in mud, and bless his heart, he's so precious. He never once got angry. He's the most patient of my children. And we just kind of got up, got his boot on. We were literally covered in farm mud.
Yep.
And got over and got the calf fed. But we sat on we had a little bench there, and we just sat there, and we were looking up at the stars while this calf is eating. And he pulls out an app on his phone with constellations, and we start looking at the constellations, and it was just precious. It was just a really sweet time where he could have been angry with me. I don't want to help you, whatever. Why don't you just bottle feed this calf while we're going through this? But no, he was very patient, and so it's a fun memory for me as a mom. I don't know how much he feels about it, but it's precious. It's funny to me too.
I grew up on a small farm, and I will say, farms do lend themselves to those intimate family times by nature of you have to work together sometimes, and it's not a normal
good,
scenario. But like you do have some of those fun memories that are kind of unique.
Yeah.
Kind of similar, like when we were following you, I think was it to Bottlefield or to look at that calf out in the pasture, and there was all that mud, and Ellie had like sneakers on, and you're like, well, get on my back, Ellie.
Oh.
She still talks about that.
Oh, good.
She thinks that was so funny. So she got on Deena's back, and Deena got in there, and her foot slipped, and so she goes down in the mud.
I forgot
and
about
Ellie
that.
goes down in the mud. Ellie thought it was the greatest. I mean, Ellie loves mud, so it was not a negative for her at all. It was definitely a positive.
Yep.
So what would you say some of the hardest, you talked about some of the sweet moments in farm life, and you just got over calving season, and that is just precious to watch them. What are some of the hardest things about farm life?
Losing a calf.
Yeah.
Losing any animal is hard, but a calf is awful. It's awful. We only lost one this spring, and I literally laid on the ground and sobbed. Like, it was awful.
And you said that mama cows struggle with it too, and that's heartbreaking
yes,
too.
they do. They will keep going back to the place where they last saw their calf, and they will moo, and they will cry, and they'll walk all over the pasture, and it's really heartrending.
Yeah.
So we don't like it when that happens. So that's why we really try to get them to accept another calf, and it really heals them.
Yeah, that's neat. Kind of switching gears a little bit, but just you talked a little bit about your upbringing in Memphis and things like that. How did you come to know Christ? And then as a tag on, who were some of the key people in your life that invested in you spiritually and helped shape you?
Well, I did not grow up in what we would term a Christian home, you know, where Christ is discussed in gospel preaching church. I grew up Methodist, and we would go to Sunday school and church, but I honestly never had a Bible. The only Bible story I ever remember being read to was the one of the house on the sand or the house on the rock. Knew nothing of Jesus' death, nothing. That's an American girl, nothing. In fact, my parents would drop us off for Sunday school, and my sister and I would go and hide in the bathrooms. And as soon as Sunday school started, we would sneak out and go to the store across the street and hang out until Sunday school was over. We just could have cared less. Yeah. Got in a lot of trouble up until 5th grade, was suspended from school a couple of times.
I can't even imagine that, Deena. I can't even imagine it.
Brat. Anyway, my parents were so fed up with me and my sister and the trouble we were getting in that they, in desperation, put us into a Christian school. Not because we had, my parents, they were believers, but they had not grown in the Lord. So it was just a reform school type of thing for us. So anyway, but there, I remember such a difference in these kids. Like, they were so nice. It was really small, upstart Christian school. And they invited me to Awana. There was a lady there that she had a daughter my age, and they would bring several of the kids to Awana. And so I started going to Awana and actually learning Bible verses for the first time, and learning Bible verses in Bible class. And just one night after Awana, I mean, the guy gave the gospel, and I raised my hand and still didn't really understand what was going on, but went back and the lady explained the gospel to me, and I got saved. And I remember afterwards just feeling so clean, like just brand new, clean. And this lady that would bring all these children to church, there were several of us that actually had gone back to talk to someone about becoming saved that night. And the whole way home we sang. It was just, it's a very sweet memory. And nobody had told me you need to share your faith. But when she dropped me off in my house, and my mom opened the door to let me in, and I said, "Mama, guess what? I got saved tonight." And Mom got down on her knees and just prayed and thanked the Lord for that, because I think, she'd gone through a lot of stuff with my older brother particularly, and she didn't want to lose all her other kids.
Absolutely.
So it was very sweet. Best memory ever.
Well, I don't. You probably haven't gotten to catch, we haven't put them out yet. Some of the other episodes that we've done, but I thought it was special that one of our college students, I think it was, mentioned you as leading her to Christ. Oh. So I thought that was really neat. And you are very working with the kids. You have a heart that these kids know truth, and that they understand the Bible and the gospel for their souls, for them.
Most
and
important
so
thing.
I can see how that has impacted how you reach out to children.
Yeah.
So it's very evident.
Good.
So after you got, how old were you about when that decision was made? 11. Okay. So from that point on, what did that look like, your spiritual growth and things?
Well, I still, I had a long way. I got suspended from school one more time before I did, really. But I had a long way to go. But at the same time, I know God changed me. I loved memorizing verses. I got involved in BMA. I don't know if you know what that is, but and then also Bible quiz and things like that. So going to summer camps, summer church camps really helped me. I got to know counselors there that were a few years older than me that I looked up to, and eventually, went to Christian college. Yeah. So just being surrounded by other people that were my age or a little bit older that really loved the Lord was huge for me.
So can you tell the story of how you met Mike?
I was only 17. I had actually gone my last 2 years to a Christian boarding school, just because I wanted to. And truth be told, it's because I wanted a head start on my MRS degree. That's really the only reason I went. But we had a mutual friend in common, and basically Mike wanted, I'm shortening it a little bit, but Mike wanted an introduction. He'd seen me around campus. I didn't know who he was. I tried out for his college cheerleading, his society cheerleading. That's actually how he met me. So one day at Saturday lunch, I was coming through, and he was sitting at the table with this friend, and he was like, "Ask her to sit with us, ask her to sit with us." And so they stopped us and talked, and they said, "Hey, you want to sit with us?" And we said yes. And from there I just met him, and he asked me out, and the rest is history. But it's funny because, if you know my husband, he can be a little bit reserved at first, but if you get to know him, he's a big goob. He really likes to play jokes. But for the first probably 3 months of our dating, I would have to make a mental list of things to talk to him about, because he would just not talk. Or I'd crack a joke and he'd go, And that's, it's like, he doesn't like me. He thinks I'm stupid. I'm just a little kid, and he's a college boy. But then I found out he was a real jokester, and he kind of warmed up after a while. But
yeah, that's fine. I can't imagine him being that shy. What I know about him.
Yeah, he's very reserved.
So you became a nurse. So you went to college and you got a degree in what?
Teaching. I taught biology.
Right, taught biology. Okay. So what led to your decision of, I want to get my nursing degree, and how that all kind of came about?
Well, it's a God thing, really. I think my mother had always said, well, let me back up. I taught for just a couple years, then stayed home with my kids for 15 years. And then I always knew in the back of my mind, I'm gonna have to go back to school because we're not gonna be able to afford to help these kids with college, you know. And so my mother would always say, you need to be a nurse. You should be a nurse. If you go back to nursing school, I'll pay for it. I could never be a nurse, Mom. I'm not smart enough. So finally, I was sitting in choir at our church in Chicago and just kind of mulling it over, like, what am I going to do? Daniel's 3. I've got to decide what I'm going to do. And it was like this desire suddenly bloomed in my heart. I want to be a nurse. And that's the only way I can say it. I never really had thought that I could do it. But I think in nursing school, and this is advice to you, you got to have that desire and you got to have that driver. You ain't going to make it. Yeah. And it really helped that I felt like God put that on my heart. And now looking at the time, we didn't know we were going to start a church, but nursing was the most flexible career for me to have. As a teacher, I wouldn't necessarily have been able to get a job, but nursing, I could only work 3 days a week. And I say only because it is still full-time. It is still 36 hours a week, but 3 days a week, so I had the other days flexible. We had full benefits when we moved down here, so it was huge. And I do think God put that desire in my heart and lit my fire because knowing we were going to come down here, we would need that. And I was still flexible enough to travel with him and raise support for the church. And when I was in nursing school, I had lots of nursing colleagues kind of scoff at me like, how are you going to be a nurse and not be able to work on Sunday? And not that I think it's wrong to work on Sundays by any means, because you're a caregiver and it's a merciful career. But I really did want to be as flexible as possible to be here. And it's just like, well, God will provide. And honestly, every job that I've had, 3 different jobs as a nurse, I've been able to be off on Sundays the majority of the time with those. It's kind of neat how that's happened.
That's really, now what got you to share kind of what specific department you are in nursing and what you do for people who may not know?
I work pediatric cardiology now. I work with babies who are born with heart defects, mostly babies. And then those babies, some of them have to have multiple surgeries throughout life. So, you know, I might have toddlers or school-age children as well. We do heart transplants, and our unit is about to expand and do kidney and liver transplants too for children.
Will you be a part of that too?
Yes.
Okay.
I will. So that's what we do.
Do you like that department, and have you learned
cardiology?
a lot?
Yeah. I haven't learned as much about the liver and kidney, but I'm sure I'll like it. I've taken care of liver and kidney kids before, so it'll be fine. But I love the cardiology part of it.
I will say, if any of my kids need to be in the hospital, I think I'd want you as my kid's nurse.
Oh,
so
good.
I think you have a way of putting
I
kids
hope your
at
kids
ease.
never have to be there.
Yeah,
though.
me too.
Yeah. So,
I'm
but
hoping
it's a great place to be. It really is. These children are so sick. Pediatric cardiology is not like adult cardiology. They're born with, you know, what we say jacked up hearts. I mean, they're just, their hearts, the vessels are in the wrong place, or they're, you know, one part of the heart didn't grow right, and we have to figure out how to rewire their plumbing basically so that they can live. And I would say probably 85% of the children that we take care of, if we didn't try to do something, would not live. So they suffer a lot, but at least they get a chance.
My guess is you have a huge impact on the families, not just the patient, the child itself, but working with the families.
We get to know them because they're chronic, so they're in and out a lot. So we definitely have our favorites and the ones that make us groan a little bit, but overall, yeah, we definitely get attached to them.
Yeah. So what would you say is your favorite part of being a nurse, and maybe the hardest parts?
My favorite part is just the children, taking care of babies. Like this past week, I had an assignment with 3 babies. It was great, you know, and if one of them is alone, that's sad once in a while, but at least you can go in there, rock them, and play with them and all that. The worst parts, probably just, the worst part of nursing is the long hours. It really is. That's kind of hard. It's a long day, but maybe, you know, just seeing people suffer. But I have to say, you kind of get used to it. I don't mean to be hard-hearted, but you kind of have to get used to it and know that the suffering that they're going to go through is so that they'll have a chance to go home.
Most of the nurses I know, by nature, the fact that they choose nursing, they have this, like you said, it's mercy. They have this gift of mercy. But in order to remain in a career like that, I think you have to have some sort of callous shell to make it.
Yeah,
otherwise, you won't be able to serve those people. You know?
Right.
So that's definitely probably evident in what you do and things like that.
Yeah.
Last question, and I ask this to most of the people on this episode, the different episodes, but what would you say for you, physically and spiritually, like when you're depleted and you're struggling or disappointed or discouraged, what would you say fills your cup?
Physically, you mean like in physically tired,
Yeah,
or
like
just?
when you've had a bad day and you just what helps you kind of wind down and find your
Yeah.
peace, you
Yeah.
know?
Well, the thing, a non-spiritual thing that would help me
Mm-hmm.
is just being outside. I don't really like to be inside. I don't like to be confined. So if I can get on my horse, and my husband knows this, I'm like, I need my horse time. I need to go in the woods, and I just need quiet, And I usually, along with that, the spiritual, I will just turn on some music while I'm riding, and I'll sing. I can pray. I can do whatever. But so music is a big part of what fills my cup. And then I just, different scriptures, reading familiar scriptures, and just knowing that God never changes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Fills my cup.
My guess is too, when you're in a hospital for long hours at a time, getting out and being with nature and maybe
Yes.
not with people sometimes
Yeah.
is helpful.
Yeah,
to
so you can turn
replenish.
off. So
Right.
you're definitely on when you're a nurse. You're
Right.
turned on the whole time. And
Well, and now you're really confined wearing
the
mask
the whole time.
Yeah, how do you guys do that?
So
I wore one the other day, and I went grocery shopping, and I had this and I don't wear them all the time, so I just when I got in the parking lot, it was just almost like a manic, I gotta pull it down because I feel like you just feel a little claustrophobic.
I don't wear the cloth ones. I have a cloth one that I wear into work until we have to go through and get our temperatures taken, and then I go up to my floor and I get the disposable paper ones, you know. And I wear those. Those are much easier. They're lighter and they're more breathable. Yeah.
Well, we're all thankful for those of you on the front lines and serving the rest of us in that way.
Good.
I want to thank you for coming and sharing your story, and I'm sure there's many more things you can share. But again, this is just a way for us to kind of connect with one another. And I know that Deena is a sweet, sweet person, great resource if you're struggling with things, and she'll pray with you and just be very kind. So please reach out to her and really all the other ladies that we've had on here. And like I said, I actually had so many people in my head that either I asked them they couldn't do it, or that I thought, man, if we had more time, I'd love to talk with them too. But hopefully this kind of jump starts all of us where we can have these live conversations, and don't be afraid to lean into their story and ask deeper questions. Sometimes you'll be amazed at what you can find. So thank you so much for joining us.